Hello. I just wanted to talk about the equality that I feel like we all have, and I guess it's a trait, but the notion, the inkling to reminisce, and what sort of creates it? Why do we all kind of go there? What is it about us that makes us think that the time that we're in is somehow not as good, or is something that is a mentality of where we need to stay in it? Because I know, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of people who are so content with their current situation that that's not necessarily the case. But there are those of us who go through tough times and are going through tough times that make us think back. Now, the idea that making a different turn and creating a different path for ourselves, that's purely natural. But I'm not talking about that specifically. I'm talking about wanting to be back there and stay back there. What is it about that? And I think the fondness is created out of something, maybe it's a lack of attainability, the fact that we know that's not realistic, and something that is out of reach for a lot of types of personalities is going to be something that we want even more. And I know I'm not alone in this regard. I've heard songs even recently talking about specific years. I mean, we've always had music that wants to harken back. Summer of '69, more recently, song 2011, which I experienced 2011. I didn't think it was all that great, and I'm not particularly in a hurry to get back there. But kudos to them for having a good time with 2011. I was 25 that year. I guess I should have probably done more than I did, but you know, no love lost. But when I hear that, I'm like, was I missing something? Were there parties that I should have been going to? Because this guy, this band, sat down and wrote this song. I don't know what the rest of the album's about. Maybe the whole album is dedicated to the past and what was. And that is somewhat comforting because it makes me realize that I'm not the only one who thinks like that. And even just looking through, social media platforms, seeing, I saw recently somebody posted something where they were just so encouraged about getting back to specifically this summer of 2016. Now, 2016, I can get what that was a good year for me also, and the summer was good, so I understand that. 2020 kind of est the bed, as it were. Not too many people in a hurry to retake that one. But it's funny. I bet at the end of the year 2011 or 2016, there were still a lot of people who were like, "Oh gosh, I'm so over this year. Bring on the 12. Bring on the 17." Because you always see those posts, and maybe that's just a state of mind or a mentality or a type of person. But I definitely align with that too. I mean, as good a year as 2016 was for me, I bet you there were moments where I was like, when are we on to the next one? Because we always want it to be better than it was, no matter how good it was. We are always hoping. 2017 was not better than 2016, by the way. Not even close. Nor was 2018. But I guess the larger question that I pose to myself and to anyone is what causes that need? What is it in us to reflect so heavily? And I think for me personally, it's kind of sad because I I can do that with a moment that is as recent as a week ago, where I can really get into it and just To be like, oh, take that moment back. And I think it's just an addictive quality of mine. It doesn't matter where or when it begins, because I've had moments like that as when I was very, very young. Because the again, another natural way for it to form is for us to get much older and to reflect on childhood, because they're more innocent times, we have less responsibilities, and we have the energy to enjoy all of it. And that makes perfect sense. But I also have memories of being fairly young, like 13 or 14, and even then wanting to go back to be like 5 or 6. So I think there's something to be said about that, just being an innate quality. And who knows, maybe, I mean, I won't say exactly my age, 38, but who knows if when I'm 45 or 50, if I'll be like, gosh, if I could just redo 38. I can't imagine that. But at my current age, the idea of wanting to be younger than a certain point in my life seems insane to me. Like, don't get me wrong, right around college era, that sounds good, but I wouldn't want to go back to any point where I have to retake formal schooling where it's mandatory. I wouldn't see, I wouldn't even know how to fit back into that mold. So that portion of me is broken off, and I'm glad for it. That's a good thing, I think. And another point I wanted to pose is art is, it can't be, but our generation, my generation, and generations since my own, I'm taking all that in, but I do wonder, were people like this 300 years ago? Were people in the Civil War era like, gosh, if I could just get back to 1850, things were simpler. I imagine for the Southerners, they would probably want to take a few years back off of that time. But for me personally, uh, thinking about that is perplexing. People in the 1500s, medieval, I imagine they were big fans of medievalness being in it. But then there also were people who were poor, who were broke, and they're just waiting for the next beheading or hanging. Because if it wasn't them, it was their friend. It was Todd or Larry, and he's literally on the chopping block right now, like literally. So for those guys, that's tough. And even before that, in biblical times, I bet there were people who knew and met Jesus Christ who were like, man, what I wouldn't give to be 100 years ago. It's like they are in the times. They are in the times that people will respect so much going forward that they will be a part of one of, if not the most popular book of all time. I mean, you can narrow it down to the other religious creations, but that one has definitely held the test of time. And the last thing I wanted to really get on is there a deeper issue within us for us to not be satisfied with our current moment? And again, I can only speak for myself, but I think there must be, because I know this is not a one off. I know going forward, like I said, I've done it before, I'm doing it currently, and I'm realistically going to do it again. And I don't know if there's a cure or if we need one, but the one thing that is troubling about it is the lack of ability to live in the moment. And I'll put that wish to anybody on New Year's Eve reflecting on the year that was, to try and remember what was good about the year, with the intent of thinking the next year will be better. But I do know it's something we're all dealing with, and I think it's okay that we're all similar in that regard.